Hello, and welcome back to our hybrid version of CIS 110. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little glimpse of what I wanted you to do today. So first of all, make sure that as a result of the time where we talked about perception checking and just having perceptions of others, and also our conversation today on conflict management, you will have a quiz due on those two modules, so module 2.2 and 2.6. So I wanted to first of all just put a Blackboard and say, hey, make sure that you do that. And that will just be due, I believe, 11:59 p.m. tonight. So again, you can use your book, but remember, don't rely on that because you only get 10 minutes to take that particular quiz. So let's talk just a little bit about conflict management. I don't know if you are like me. I actually enjoy conflict, and that's weird, and I get that. But I really believe that conflict is beneficial, and I really believe when handled effectively, conflict can actually really be a tool that can bring a group along and can kind of make a group more effective. But again, as long as conflict is done well. As you look at groups and as you look at kind of group formation, there are four principles of group formation. Forming, storming, norming, and performing. If we look at those four distinctions, conflict really occurs in that storming stage. And I don't know about you, but when I want to say something to someone and I don't, there are a lot of things in my heart and my soul that I sit there and go, man, I just so badly want to say that. And a lot of times my reluctance to say something will impact my relationship with that person. I believe, and there are different people who will say different things. This is a personal Mr. Schalzer disclaimer. I personally believe that conflict, when brought to the forefront of a relationship, and when done so lovingly, and when done so also under the guise of we just want to be effective and we want to accomplish a task or we want to build a relationship. When conflict is done in that regard, when we confront in that regard, I believe that conflict can be effective at building up relationships. Just depends, though, on exactly kind of our ultimate reason for that and also the personalities of people that are involved. So as we look at that, I just give that background to kind of say, let's walk through conflict management and what that looks like, and conflict resolution, because both are important. So there's different behaviors that we can accomplish. You can read about those if you would like on the PowerPoint, but I'm just going to try to summarize them. So if you look at it like spectrum, on this end of the spectrum you have passive behavior. On this end of the spectrum you have aggressive behavior. Neither is good. Okay? Passive behavior says, I'm going to submit, everybody else is right, I had nothing, I'm not going to say anything. You're just kind of existing. Aggressive behavior, you're a dictator. You make everyone else do whatever you want to do. There's another level of that spectrum we're not going to talk a lot about, but passive-aggressive behavior is kind of that little tiny daggers, right, where you just kind of are trying to use manipulation to get what you want, or trying to use little comments to get what you want. Ultimately, and we're gonna keep here for just a second. Ultimately, we want to participate in assertive behavior, and I want to go ahead and read that definition for you, what that's like. So what it means is you express your personal preferences and defend your rights while respecting keyword preferences and rights of others. Now, there's some guidelines you can take to kind of walk through that process of being assertive, but I believe that assertive behavior is not bad. I believe that it is actually a useful skill that we can kind of all use to say, here's what I think, here's why I think that, and I will defend that, but let's dialogue. And let's discuss. And I'm not going to look down on you if you believe something different or think something different. I'm going to respect you and respect your opinion, but also ultimately recognize that we don't necessarily have to disagree. We just have to function. We just have to be effective. So we can identify what we're thinking or feeling. A lot of this is self-analysis, right, where we're just kind of looking and saying, here's exactly what I think or feel. Analyze the cause of feelings. So if you're mad at someone for doing something, kind of go to that specific reason. What have they done, and how did they hurt you specifically? If you want to, you can identify what your real preferences and rights are. So be honest. What do you prefer as a result of the situation? You could define an ideal compromise. What would that look like? And then use descriptions to make I statements. A lot of times we get in trouble with conflict because we're very aggressive in our attacks. So it's you did this and you are this and all these kind of things, as opposed to saying I noticed this about your behavior, or I saw you act in this way. Making it perception based, saying I noticed, I saw it, as opposed to just immediately acting and kind of coming up. Several different conflict styles. We don't have to keep on all of these, but I guarantee you we took a conflict management style profile. We have people in our class who are all across the spectrum. So you draw and remove yourself from the conflict, just kind of walk away. You accommodate, you satisfy the needs of others without focusing on your own. Forming, you satisfy your own need, no regard for us, which is similar to just that very aggressive style of conflict management. You compromise, you each give up something. Ultimately, what we want to try to accomplish is a collaborative conflict style, where we're working together, everybody's needs are met, both sides feel they've been heard, and we're working together, collaborating on a solution to the problem. As you look at collaboration in general, if ultimately we're trying to accomplish collaboration, there are certain things that you can do, certain guidelines that you can take to strive along the process of this goal. Now, I will say this. I think that there are some people of a camp that says every conflict can be solved with collaboration. Okay, ideally, right, we could all work together to achieve the common good and the common goal. But we're also people. We're also very selfish. We're very prideful. And so there are some situations where someone that you're dealing with just may refuse to collaborate. And that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a failure on your part to be able to engage effectively in conflict management. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But ultimately, the ideal would be that we're collaborating with others. So you want to be able to identify the problem and then identify the problem as your own. So being able to look at it and say, here is how I view the problem. And here are specifics about what the problem is. You want to describe the problem in terms of behavior, consequences, and feelings. So you want to ultimately, all along this spectrum, this is why communication is important when it comes to conflict management. You're trying to identify certain elements of the problem, of what's happening, of the consequences for taking one action over another, and then ultimately just the feelings of yourself and of the other person. Don't evaluate the other person's motives. You have no idea what their motives are. Sometimes can you tell if someone's motives are selfish? Absolutely. But deep down you don't know that unless they vocalize that. It's all assumption. Find common ground. Try to establish some semblance of connection where you both can kind of reach out and find some point of agreement. And then just mentally rehearse so that you can state your request briefly. So being able to kind of walk through that process of articulating exactly what it is about the situation that would make it an ideal outcome for you. And don't speak in generalities. Speak in specifics. The takeaway for this is that as we look at perception checking and as we look at conflict management, we do not want to fall victim to false perception checking. And we want to manage our personal image. How we practice overcoming conflict. This is all intertwined, these three particular topics. How we overcome conflict and whether we do so effectively will be influenced by our perceptions of others and also our personal image and how they perceive us. So it's all intertwined. We want to have accurate perceptions of others. We want to have a personal image that is respectable. We want people to view us as ethical communicators. We want people to view us as hard workers. We want people to view us as this, and this. This is where credibility comes into play. If you're entering a situation where immediately the person doesn't trust you, or immediately the person does not think that you want their good, they're going to be on the defensive immediately. That's human nature to do that. So you want to have credibility, you want to have a reputation of integrity, of character, when you enter a conflict so that the person knows Michael's not trying to swindle me. Michael's not trying to just shut me down. Michael's trying to try to solve the problem. That's ultimately what we're going to try to accomplish. And there are certain people who will try to manipulate you and will try to drag you down and will allow you to be victim of a false perception check. But I would encourage you to not fall victim to that yourself. And then also just overcome conflict effectively. The biggest thing that you can do, this isn't rocket science. The biggest thing that you can do is you can dialogue. There are certain things that you can do, like using I statements, not immediately just casting someone down or assuming that they want you to, assuming the worst of them, so assuming that they have these hidden motives. You can avoid those things and you can just dialogue. And I am a firm believer in open dialogue, trying to figure out what is the best scenario and how can we collaborate to achieve that end. So hopefully today kind of helped a little bit as you look at conflict. If you have specific questions about conflict, I would encourage you to either ask your classmates or we can talk about it in class. I love dialoguing about conflict. It's really interesting, but I do think that it's helpful if utilized effectively and if overcome with the objective of solving a problem and avoiding worst case consequences. So that's just a little bit on conflict today. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And make sure that you submit quiz 3 and finish that. All right. Thank you, my friends. Hopefully today was helpful and beneficial. If you need anything, let me know.